look for what moves you. Just look for what you like. Well, look for what you think is pretty, beautiful, ugly, horrific, whatever it is that you like. Just shoot pictures that you'd put on your own wall. It could be a flower, it can be a mountain, it doesn't matter. I shoot what I like and I'm very happy with the results. But then again, I do it for myself. I don't do it for anybody else. It's my own little reward. If I'm having a bad day and I can do something that if it were somebody else's work and I can look at it and be moved, then I've achieved something. How to become interested in photography? I want to say that it really started to become interesting when I went to Europe and I got to photograph Paris. And once I saw the photos, it just kind of got me hooked. Just some of the compositions and yeah, that was neat. I got this one shot of up in the Eiffel Tower. There's a little cafe up there, and it looks like there was nobody there. It just happened to catch it that one shot where it's just empty for that moment. It's just very serene because you see the backdrop of Paris and like this empty table, and it creates an illusion. I don't know. It opened up a whole world, and when I got back to the States, I took a photography course in college, and that's when I got my first DSLR, which was a Canon Rebel XT. And around that time, I was traveling with a rock band, so I'd bring the camera along basically for the downtime. So I'd end up shooting cities like Houston or Austin or New Orleans, wherever we were, and it's a cliche saying, but it gives me a chance to kind of see what the world looks like. Funny enough, I started off with a high-8 video camera, and I bought it basically to tape band practices, but what I ended up really using it for is just kind of like moving photography. Like the moment I discovered like a unmade bed, the folds in the sheets, how everything kind of, that was probably the epiphany. And from there, I'd start off with the video camera and would make little movies. I think that's really when it all started. Okay, one thing about my photography I should state right at the beginning is I don't alter my photographs. If there's something in them that, like, I won't move things, I shoot things as they are. If there's something in the way, I will remove it from the picture by changing my position. And it just, it makes it easier because then I have to go back and edit it, but there's enough that I can capture that it doesn't really, I don't have to do that. So that's not to say I haven't staged photographs, because I've done that too. But for like my general shooting, I just come upon a scene and I try to shoot it. Well, I do shoot it as it is. Even if I have to, like, I don't know, just going to be a contortionist to get the shot. I don't even know how to describe it. It might just be a rust stain on the side of a building, but it's really cool looking. It actually reminds me of Rothko. That's another thing that happens. Like, I'll take photos and then afterwards I'll be looking back at it and be like, oh, that reminds me of this, that reminds me of that. And it's like proportion, composition, and just framing things and how you can create illusions and create like these like abstract compositions just by getting a close-up of a granite wall and all the different possibilities. And it just amazes me. I love seeing how things look through different perspectives. Almost a distraction and an excuse to do things that I just didn't have, whatever it was, to go out and do them any other way. One summer I spent documenting all the waterfalls on Mount Greylock, and there's no way, no chance I would have gotten up at 3 o'clock in the morning just to go on a nature walk. So it basically gave me an excuse to get out, hike, exercise, and I like to shoot the same scene at different times throughout the year, throughout the season, to get the different qualities of light, to see what conditions repeat and what to look for certain conditions, whether it be like the fog flooding the valley, looking down from Mount Greylock. I have photos where it just looks like this ocean because you don't see the valley, you see clouds, and one of them looks like a whale spout. And just the what is it, the element, what's the term, something disbelief. It just doesn't look real, but yet there it was. Mm-hmm. And it's okay, so how did this happen? Like, what do I have to look for to get this again? And that's where the wild goose chase begins. And I think that's the part that I find most exciting. It's like the whole process. And that's just one example. Process of photographing an egg. Egg is very photogenic. But you got to light it in a certain way, present it in a certain way. So it's like conducting a little experiment. It really depended on what phase I was in my life and what surrounded me. I mean, when I lived in Florida, you had like a whole completely different landscape than I did when I moved back up to Berkshire County. And then you have, like in Maryland, that was totally different. I don't know, it's botanical gardens. I love botanical gardens. Even like a nursery, you can get like the most amazing photographs. There's really aesthetic beauty in more subjects that you can name, and that's, I think, what it just has to catch me. I don't know if there's really any good explanation. Sometimes it's just I'll try it and I'll like it and it will stick. Other times the colors tend to, summertime's very green. It's just this wash of green. Everything's green, 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 green. And I'm not too fond of the color green. So a black and white might allow me to focus on other elements as opposed to this thing being all green. Lines, shape, contrast. Sometimes color just isn't necessary. It doesn't really add anything, where taking it away presents the image that I find more pleasing. People use granite for their countertops. People use various stones for their floor. So they already kind of have it in their house. And they have it for a reason. They like the look of it. Yeah, they find it pleasing. Wouldn't it be interesting if you can use that stone, rock, in a different way, from a different perspective? Like, see it in a different way. First, it's aesthetics. It's its aesthetic value.
And that's what you're trying to do with your artwork? Your photographs?
I don't know if I'm trying to do with it or just the fact that, I did a close-up and, oh, that's cool. Whoa, that looks like this. Or, wow, that's pretty neat. What if I do this? I guess that. Like one leads to the other. Where I really don't have any, there's not a plan really going into it.
You don't have when you see a place, you don't have a preconceived.
No, I just see the place and it's interesting enough for me to go get my camera. And then I just get lost. I just shoot and basically get all I can get from it. And then I'll go back the next day under different conditions and do the same thing. It's seeing the end results under different conditions. And I think that's really it. It just, you just have to do it. And if it's, you have a lot of outside factors also kind of like pushing you in one direction or another. And really, either you're going to do it or you're not. I don't know. It's weird because I feel compelled. It's not like this whole being an artist, being a musician. It's not a title. It's just a lifestyle. I would love to be out walking some night and just see people on their porch just playing music for the sake of playing music, for no other purpose, just to have that experience. And nowadays, I think we've basically put it in a box to where it has to look like this, it has to be done under these conditions. You have to do it. You have to play this, and I think that's what's gonna. That's what's not distract. What's the word? Discourage. That's what discourages me. Is when you start putting up all these walls and rules, and it has to be, and it's okay, I'm going over here and doing it my way. It's balance. That's really it. It's when I have a number of things going on, I think that's when I'm at my most creative because I'm just jumping from one thing to the other. And while I'm on one thing, my subconscious is kind of going over the other. So when I get to the other, I'm kind of excited to be there because I have balance. It's not all one thing. That you can, kind of each thing kind of feeds each other, which I think I like. I don't know. I think it was just kind of something else to do. Another way, because I can't paint. I want to paint. I love painting. I can't make that. Even drawing, I can't put on paper what I see in my mind's eye. So, but with photography, I end up with results that I'm happy with. And even how people put artwork on their walls and whatnot, I put images that I've taken, not because I've taken them, but because I enjoy the imagery. I try to look at it as a third person, as opposed to it's mine, but this will look good. So I try to take that perspective. Even in the music I create, it's got to move me first. There's no point because I want to listen to it, I want to use it, I want to consume it. I create art for myself, for my own consumption. Really. I'm fascinated by analog, because really I don't believe digital has character. You take the old analog, even the camera itself dictated the format, whether it be a square, 4x3, or the film stock Velvia from Kodachrome. They're different. They give a certain look, where the digital cameras, you can't tell an Olympus from a Canon, from a Nikon. You just can't. And I think that's kind of a shame. So it's like taking the techniques of analog photography and applying them digitally, but not over so, to where it becomes like almost a separate type of, I guess, mixed media.
So you've never had the experience of shooting film and developing it in the dark?
No, funny enough, for my first photo shoot, I tried that, and I could not load the camera. And I ended up using one of the first digital cameras. I think the thing was like $5,000. But it's funny because the images are like small and grainy, and it's considering how expensive the technology was at the time. But yeah, I think I did like a point and shoot camera, but that's really it for film. Said I started with a Rebel XT, and then I got a Canon 60D. I used that for a number of years, basically until it started, like individual pieces started breaking off of it. And I just got 2 new cameras. I got a 6D, which is a full frame, my first full frame, and a 7D. When I was down in Maryland, I discovered the phenomenon that is known as a murmuration, which is basically thousands, tens of thousands of birds interacting with each other in such a way that it basically it becomes its own entity. And so I got the 7D to be able to do stuff like that, to capture fast moments. And the 6D I got because I had never had a full frame, and I wanted to see what that was all about. I do everything in Lightroom. Yeah, I do. I play with the sliders, especially like if I shoot something against like a white sky and there are clouds, you just play with the sliders to kind of bring everything a little more into perspective, to make it more dynamic or dramatic. I never make collages or bring multiple images, or they just kind of work with one photo at a time to create a story. Another thing is like experimenting. Like I bought all these emulations, and there's like all kinds of like Kodak, was it AccuFine, T-Max, all these variations and different speeds like T-Max 100, T-Max 3200, and the differences, and just playing around, experimenting, that's something I will do with the photographs. While I may not actually edit the objects in them, I will play with the overall look and feel. And that goes back to the analog versus digital. Because again, like I didn't have that experience of the film stocks to where it would only be this black and white, or it'll only be color. Now I can see both and decide which one I think looks better. Like the majority of my sheep photos are in black and white, but there are some where the color just adds, it just creates the image. And for those, I'll leave the color in. Another thing could be like proportion, like black and white's 2 color images, because I don't really want to use the same image both in color and black and white. Maybe at a later stage, but not within the same. So right now, the majority of all of them on my website are black and white, but there are some photographs I took on the farm that are in color, and they work very well in color. The fall scenes, like fall scenery, that's usually one. So rarely in the winter, because you have that contrast anyway, and the color doesn't really add. I don't know. It's. I love that though. That's what I love about photography, is like once you're in a place that inspires you, you just want to choke it to death and get everything you can out of it. After high school, I knew I wasn't ready for college, but my parents kind of like pressured me into it, so I went, got a few courses out of the way, and then I quit. And then I moved to Florida. Father retired, so I went down there, and nothing going on, so I went back to school. What was I doing then? I think I was going to become an art historian. That's right. I was into art history at the time. And then at some point, I just stopped going. I couldn't tell you why. I could be getting straight A's or I could be failing. It didn't matter. At some point, it was just, I'd be done with it and move on. And then, so I did that a couple of times. When I moved to Tampa, I was playing in the band, and we were all working in a phone room for a roofing company. And that job sucked. They didn't have a website. Well, maybe I could build a website for them. I just won't tell them that I don't know a single thing about it. I'll just learn on it. So that's what I did. And I taught myself, and I discovered I liked doing it. So back to school again. And then I got a job. And at some point, very early, I ended up learning more and doing more in the job than I was in school, so I quit school again. And I worked as a graphic designer, web designer, multimedia designer for 6 years for this print company. And then the print company went bankrupt. And I had started getting into more interactive stuff. It was back when Flash was still king, before Steve Jobs killed it, and it really was the only medium that you could interact on that level with. JavaScript was definitely nowhere near, and apps hadn't even been really a thing yet. Apps, not the applications, but the apps. But right after I graduated college, they killed Flash. And I had spent like the whole time learning Flash. And it's like, okay. And yeah, so then I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into educational technology, but then I needed a master's. And I know I didn't want to be in advertising because I just didn't want to manipulate people into buying things that just end up in the landscape and just end up being part of the problem. So one thing led to another, and I ended up on the farm. It's very cathartic. It's like there are moments in life when you know you've grown, and that was one of them, where everything is like totally different than everything you've ever known. Case in point, being presented with cycles, the cycle of life, the seasons. Basically, if you didn't do A, then B would not occur. And if B occurred, then, a complete disaster. I was living on the farm too, and I was living in basically a one-room cabin. And during the winter, if I didn't go out and get wood for my fireplace, I wouldn't have had heat. And it didn't matter if I had the flu. It didn't matter if I didn't want to get out of bed. If I didn't have wood at certain times during the year, I could very easily go into hypothermia and die. But it's so, despite whatever headspace I was in, I did it.
Now, in terms of your photography then,
Yeah.
that's what you were trying to photograph, or just it kind of came
Yeah,
out?
kind of good. I mean, that was just one of them. Just the beauty that I saw in death is as much in life, like how each stage has its own merit. And while on the thought of a concept, it might present one way where the actual reality of the situation is totally different. I was a shepherd for 3 years, and I knew going into it that A, it wouldn't last that long, B, that what am I doing here? Like, that was not supposed to be. I graduated college with my bachelor in fine arts, and then I went and became a shepherd. So, yeah. But I had my career before I got my degree, so there you go.
So let's talk about that. Did you go to school?
Yeah.
Did you study music or?
No, I got my degree in web design and new media.
Mm-hmm. And where did you go to school?
Academy of Art University, located in San Francisco, and I did their online program.
Was that while you were touring, or?
Yeah. Plus, it was a comprehensive education. I got a lot out of the curriculum. It started off just being very selfish. It was just for me. Mm-hmm. And that's really, I was fine with that. And I guess like the more time I invested in like the archive I started building, I don't know, I figured why not see if I can sell some of these. At least support my, equipment and costs. And hopefully I will acquire a couple of new admirers or even collectors. Create an awareness of my work. Maybe for one moment to give whoever is looking at my photograph a little mini vacation from whatever's going on in their life at the moment. There's some images when I look at, I kind of lose myself, and it just leads my imagination to wander. Possibly an interest in collecting some of my pieces. But just to get a start, I just want that first show experience, everything that goes with it, the good and the bad, the variables. Because then from there, I have the basic knowledge to do another show, and then another, and eventually I want to do a portfolio review, and basically just start I think I've already resigned myself to the fact that it's going to be slow. It may not happen, but it's I think it's worth it to find out, basically on the chance that it could. And that would allow me, really it would allow me to travel and do a bunch of really cool stuff that, it seemed kind of absurd to do without a purpose. And the camera gives me that purpose. And if I can go to these places and see these things and see them in a way that people don't normally see them, and present it and give somebody, a different window to look through, that's I think that would be a good little life. Yeah, just create an awareness that I'm out there, that my work exists. It's not for everybody, or maybe it is. I don't know yet. I haven't tried. And I like doing it enough to where I think it's worth the next step. So, and it might fail or it might succeed, but without actually doing it, you're never going to find out.